Kishore. How are you?
Good to see you, Carol. Yes, I'm good. Where are you joining from? Are you in the office?
I'm in San Francisco. Yes,
Is it freezing down there, or what's it like?
it is cold. It's about, let me see. I think the high today will be 50, 55.
That's awesome. We have folks joining in from Florida, Idaho, Michigan, Chicago, Boston, a lot of Boston folks actually. So a lot of folks in the East Coast, but really glad to have you here, Carol. I think we're going to have a lot of interesting topics to discuss. Before we started, I would just love to get a quick introduction from you in terms of your experience, but also specifically what Unity does. I think it's a very interesting company in general. So we'd just love to get a quick introduction from you.
Sure. I'm Carol Carpenter. I'm CMO of Unity. I've been in technology for about 28 years, primarily on the marketing side. I've done everything from product management to product marketing to demand to now CMO role. I was CEO at one point of a company and a general manager as well. So I've done a lot on the business side. And Unity is a real-time 3D company. We provide this core engine that this real-time 3D engine that powers it's a platform where people build games, people create digital twins, they do professional artistry. If you saw Avatar recently, a lot of the effects and a lot of the movie was made using Unity tools. So we cut across many industries, but at the core, we are a real-time 3D platform.
Awesome, Carol. Carol, so today I want to sort of discuss a lot about AI and in terms of how you envision the opportunity to lie for the marketers who want to leverage AI, right? But before we start, have you been using ChatGPT a lot lately? Like every day, every week? What's your frequency like, and what do you primarily use it for?
Yeah, I've been playing with ChatGPT and also you.com. I don't know if you've tried that as well. I've been trying a few of these different engines. I've also tried Bing and Bard. And yeah, pretty much every day. I find lots of uses, everything from tell me about festivals coming up in my area to, hey, I'm trying to plant some things in my garden. Give me some ideas for what blooms during this time of year.
Oh, that's great. Carol, I've been using it a lot, like you said as well, primarily to if I have to rewrite a sentence or a paragraph that I'm not comfortable writing, I'll write it. Sometimes when I ask some questions, it throws some links that are not existent, or probably it gives some false responses once in a while. So I'm like probably taking it with a grain of salt, but sort of good to hear that you're actually using it pretty frequently, actually.
Yeah, and have you been using it for work? Because that's where I think it gets really interesting, the whole productivity. Yeah.
Can you give me examples, Carol? Like from your work angle, what have you found so helpful from ChatGPT so far? To start with.
Well, and if I could just maybe frame it a little bit, which is here at Unity, we've been using AI for many, many years. So we have machine learning models that we put to work on our ad and monetization side. We've been using it in our character and animation and environmental simulation. So we've been playing with a lot of AI machine learning models and enabling our customers to build their applications, their games, their digital twins using AI underneath. I think what's changed a lot is obviously the generative AI piece. And that's what's been changing for all of us. So we're experimenting with it in ways to help our customers and also internally. And I think that's what you want to talk more about is in marketing, how we're seeing just a sea change in productivity.
That's very well articulated. On that point, Carol, at a high level, what opportunities do you think that excite you the most from the marketing angle, right? I think you are obviously forward thinking in terms of technology. So just curious to know your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think there are a few ways. One is obviously in how we reach out to customers. And there's been a whole slew. I mean, everyone's MarTech stack is overflowing with tools about how do you target the right person? How do you do lead qualification? How do you do better progressive profiling? How do you do better support? They are getting a lot better. So that's like one whole category, and we could talk, and I can give you examples there.
Yeah.
And then there's what I call internal marketing productivity. And that includes primarily content creation, like first drafts of copy, first drafts of creative, as well as learning and training. So those are the two big buckets where we're, I'd say, using and exploring more ways with ways to use AI.
That's great, Carol. I want to double click on the second point you mentioned, right? On the content production side, right? It feels as if the cost of content production is going to come down significantly, right? Where things that you might have accomplished with like 100 freelancers might get done with like 15 freelancers, right? Or tools like video editing, for example, right, where you have to have like an expensive studio to edit videos, but you can probably have an AI generate clips and stuff like that. Any thoughts on what could be the possible repercussions or the benefits for a company to operate in this times?
I'm very optimistic,
Okay.
in particular for marketers, right? So we talk about content creation, and generative AI is super helpful for, as I mentioned, first drafts. So first drafts of copy, and in particular, any copy you're trying to write, like we use it to do our first drafts of our SEO pages. We use it for, we just put out the date for our user conference that's coming later this year. We use ChatGPT to generate the first draft. Now, and then we'll talk about what happens after that. So that's the first draft. I've used it for first drafts of emails. Okay, I need to write an email to the CEO about Q1 performance. Here are the topics I want to hit. I do it because I'm curious, and also, frankly, it is a time saver. It spits out what I would say is a pretty decent first draft. The other area of content creation is in the creative itself. Like, actually, we want images of, we want a very forward, dynamic, exciting image of customers, talking to each other and networking. And we want some of those images for our event and for the promotion.
Right.
And then the other area of content that I think is just going to be tremendous is learning and training. So, how do we unveil, because a lot of what marketing is about is revealing the value of products and services, right? How do we unveil and reveal the value in a way to help people learn to be great creators? How do we, our vision is we believe the world is better with more creators in it. How do I make everybody a creator? And so in marketing, we are creating content to help people learn the Unity tools and learn it faster and more productively. So I think the learning training, there is no question that generative AI will be super helpful. Now, you mentioned this, like, it's not always accurate.
Right.
And that's what our general approach right now is, very much first drafts. And then you have to use this AI for the second and third drafts. But I have to say, when it comes to copy and copywriting, Gen AI is pretty darn good.
That's great. That's interesting.
But you and I still have to seed it. Like, you still have to have that creative thought and the creative seed of, okay, I want copy that talks about a specific Unity product and these 3 benefits. And then it can spit that, out of first draft, but you have to seed it. There still has to be the catalyst.
Right. On that one point you mentioned that is pretty fascinating is the image creation part of the process, right? Where, typically, brands hire someone like an agency to do these photo shoots and hire a big sort of crew to come out to your office and have all these things. When you mean the photographs and images, do you think that dependency will come down significantly? Is that what you mean by that, just for the audience folks to understand?
Yes. And look, the first drafts of these generative AI images, stable diffusion or whatever you're playing with, it's never going to, well, I shouldn't say never, but today they aren't really exactly what you want.
Right.
Like if you said, I want to have an image of Kishore, I want an avatar of Kishore.
Right.
I want this avatar to be maybe, I don't know how tall you actually are, 6'5", and,
Right.
it will spit something out. And the question is, and this is probably, we're going to get to some of the cons or things we need to watch out for, is how do we know it's really Kishore? How do we, how could someone take your likeness? But what's interesting is if I said, I want to use you in a series of advertisements or in social media, I could create a likeness of you that, with your permission in this case, and use that across many mediums. That is doable today, by the way. I think I shared with you in an earlier discussion around, we work with there's a partner company called OnMind out of Korea, and they have created, using some of our animation and facial, something called Ziba Face Trainer, a model. She's actually a social media influencer who is what a company is using for social media ads for their brand. And obviously that's a lot less expensive and it's much more reproducible, and you don't have to schedule time with this person to have her pose and do makeup and hair. And it's a huge savings.
Right. Carol, one question on this. So obviously, like you said, every startup now is going to think about sort of AI and also building a lot of AI tools for enterprises, right? When you think about evaluating an AI tool for your internal marketing teams, what sort of criteria do you look at? For example, somebody in the chat asked this question, what was the AI tool that you recommend for content, right? It's obviously a very broad question, but how should marketers think about evaluating tools like that if they want to purchase something for their company? Because there's a lot of them.
There are many, and there are many more coming for sure.
Right.
I would say, so how many, I think lots of folks, we've all at different companies have implemented chatbots. So this is a great example. Chatbots have been around a long time, but when they first came out, they weren't that good. Let's face it. They were like, okay. And then now they're pretty darn good, and you can train them on your own data set. So you can build a large language model that is relevant and pertinent. So I'll give you an example. We use Conversica as our chatbot on our website. If you go there, and it uses AI, and it has gotten better and better because it's actually continuously feeding a large language model around Unity specific data.
Right.
The other one that I mentioned, because we use Jasper.ai, and we use it to create our first draft of all of our SEO pages. And it's great because it creates the first draft, and then we iterate on it as a team. But we start with that.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's one more question, Carol, which I thought was interesting. Let me take this question. I think from Gail, which she asked this question about, just a curious question, like, what does Carol think how AI will change how law firms operate, right? Because, even internally, right, we go through back and forth, a lot of legal contracts and all that stuff. So any sort of high level thoughts that you have would be good to hear.
Oh, well, I'd say, this comes back to like what you were asking about before. It's going to make us more productive. And I call it generally like the first draft of anything. It's going to catch, oh, you know what? You probably don't want to use that line because it's trademarked by someone else. Or you don't want to use the word like dominate because that would elicit DOJ interest. So I think there's like that first draft where it could be very, very helpful. Here's what I do worry about, and you brought it up in the very first few minutes. Today, a lot of these tools are super helpful, but they're not accurate.
Right.
That is the downside. And where we will always probably need lawyers and law firms is to help us make sure we're not stepping over the line of trademark or copyright infringement, as well as many other legal snafus we could get into, because it's not accurate. And by the way, we can't let it become a crutch. Like if you look at, you could become an architect today, and you can use a lot of automation and a lot of tools to help you generate the drawings, the plans, the what are they called? The elevation plans. Like there are like 20 different types of plans it spits out, right? But you still need the creative juice to say, what's really going to work, what's really going to have good flow, what's really going to. So and like I mentioned, there is still, I think, a great need. I still think people need to learn how to write well. Yes, there's grammar checkers and Grammarly, and Chat GPT can rewrite everything for you. But you still need to know what are the good. What's the essence of good communication?
Right. No, for sure. So for me, how I found it useful is that I'm not a extremely native English speaker, right? So I'm sometimes worry my copywriting is not as good as like the experts do. So I try to sort of check my sort of writing to ensure that it sort of fits the right narrative of sorts. But you're absolutely right. I think the storytelling aspect of things still has to come from us in the first place. So that's a great point. One quick point that I want to mention: we are excited because we are in the events business, and we want to ensure that marketers can repurpose a lot of event content post event, right? Because folks are so busy sort of doing an event, but they forget what happens after the event, be it like blog posts, video clips, and all that stuff. Have you thought about that direction, Carol, for a lot of event marketers who are trying to do post event follow up better? Any ideas on how this can have sort of help their work streamline that a little bit better?
Well, there's something. So there's two areas. One is the follow up, which is how do you personalize the content to what they actually experienced at the event. And I think that's just going to get better and better. Obviously, there's a balance between privacy and customization or personalization, and that's we in marketing have been dealing with that for a while. And I think it's been good that GDPR and other regulation has come into play. I think we as marketers need to get better at that. The other area is the content area post. So there's follow-up, which is personalization, and then there's how do we take this fabulous body of content that was generated during the event and use it post-event. So one other company I think is super interesting is a company called Content Groove. And there may be others, but this is the one I've stumbled upon, which enables you to take the keynote, take a webinar, take any long form video and slice it up into pieces that you could, and relevant pieces. And then you could say, I want the piece that talked about AI. I want the piece that talked about real-time 3D. I want the piece that talked about, digital twins. Takes those components and allows you to, it slices them up super well, accurately, and you can use it on social media. You can use it through email marketing, anything you want to do.
That's well said. I'm actually looking at that tool. It looks pretty interesting. We'll have to look into that. But the other thing also, Carol, apart from the video, also is the video to text in terms of like takeaways, blog posts, ebooks, and stuff that you can generate from a lot of event videos, which also looks very promising in the first place. So it'll be exciting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, and they do that. They'll help you. They extract all they go video to text, and they extract, and it's frankly one of the more accurate. Now, again, this is where AI has gotten so much better, right? So much better, like capitalization and punctuation. Like you don't want to put something out because the way we speak is not how things are always spelled. But they do a really good job, it's getting better across many types of AI.
God, that's awesome, Carol. One thing, Carol, obviously we spoke about a lot of AI tools. One thing I was thinking about deeply for myself is that, right, how do you actually cultivate the habit of creativity, or how do you build creativity as a muscle as we sort of progress in this age, right? Because, we're all used to social media, trying out new tools, trying to automate a lot of things, but the whole concept of creativity, I worry, will come down eventually. What's your sort of sense on how to encourage people to think creatively going forward?
Do you remember when the internet came about? And you probably are too young, but a lot of people said, oh, events will be dead.
Right.
Oh, we'll never, we don't need to see people. We don't need to
Right.
call people anymore. We're going to just do everything over email and through the internet.
Right.
Well, that hasn't fully come true at all, right? It's certainly been an adjunct, but you still have to have the good marketing basics. And I still believe every company, every business, people need to have people have brands too. Like, the basics of marketing have not gone away, even though the tools are tremendous and moving so quickly. But the basics of, how is your product different? Why should a customer care? What is your value stack? Is it emotional, functional, or economic?
Right.
How do you put your value stack together? How do you position yourself in the market? Like, that doesn't change regardless of all the amazing tools we have. And you can have the best tools, but if you have a not very strong value proposition, good luck to you. It won't matter. It really won't matter. And so I think the basics, and that's something, here at Unity, we've been working as a team, like, what are the basics? How do we go back to some of the fundamentals of great marketing? And then the other part that, you were getting at early, which is, we've encouraged every single person here on the marketing team to play with ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, whatever you prefer. We've encouraged everyone to play with it because I think it's important for everyone to have some literacy around it. It's curiosity, it's being willing to experiment. And to your point around it not being accurate, is bring some skepticism to the table, right?
That's well said, Carol. Carol, I want to take some couple of questions from the folks who. This question from Tonya: how are you applying AI to the data-centric marketing campaigns you are creating? And there is a follow-up question I'll take later. But yeah.
And by the way, thank you for this question, Kimberly, but data centricity, do you remember a few years ago when we were all talking about, well, we still are, every marketer needs to be data literate. And it feels that way. I mean, I do think the AI right now, what we're seeing is definitely a sea change, but it's the same idea in the sense of, just like we wanted every marketer to be data literate, we want every marketer to be AI literate. So in the demand gen campaigns, there are a few areas like lead qualification, where we are using and applying AI for the lead qualification. It's on top of what I used to call like standard automation, which is lead qualification. Look at buying assessments and do they, are they ready to buy? What's their readiness? What's the title? Like, that was level 0. And when you apply AI, it's, okay, what company are they? What tools do they already have? And AI can help you gather a lot of that. And so it's stitching it together faster than some of the, I'd say, conventional lead gen and lead qualification tools. The other part is in the follow-up. We're using AI to generate the follow-up emails, right? So actually generating them on the fly in a much more personalized way, but also using ChatGPT, like, generate the first draft of those nurture emails. Let's take a look. And I have to be honest, like, they're pretty good.
The first point you mentioned sort of sparked me. Imagine a tool can read, the annual reports of all companies, understand what they're looking to get to, customize a whole email according to what their top 3 priorities look like. It just makes the outbound sequences so personalized and relevant, right? It just seems a little exciting, at least from the forethought of it, but it'll be good to see what happens.
It is. And like I said, I think it is a productivity enhancer, as long as I still think we need humans, the human brain, to help kind of check and craft and polish.
There is one question from Kimberly, Carol. So I think this is the earlier question regarding your mention of using Jasper for it's a slightly tactical question. Do you give it the SEO terms you want included and the product details and have it generate, or do you have AI as the SEO terms? I don't know if you know this much detail, since I'm sure your team will be looking into it, but if you have thoughts.
I don't want to mislead you. I believe it's we give it the terms we want included in the product details, but I will find out, Kimberly, and get the specifics for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. Carol, I want to sort of move to the second part of the discussion that I quickly wanted to have with you is about managing board relationships, right? I think a lot of VPs of marketing and CMOs interact with board members frequently, be it quarterly or be it biannually, uh, giving a marketing update of sorts in terms of what is happening in the business, right? And it's also a time for board members to see how the CMO or VP of marketing is performing in the company, right? I was curious, actually, I'm sure you've been in this position multiple times before at VMware and other companies. If at all a board asks you to sort of present 5 to 6 slides or 10 slides about how the marketing is performing, right? How do you typically structure the deck? Because I want to ensure that some folks go too much into depth and it sort of gets people lost into things. So how do you balance the right level of depth, and how does the structure of the deck look like?
By the way, I've had to learn this the hard way
Okay.
through years of presenting to the board.
Right.
I also have sat on boards. I sit on a board, and so I've been on the other side.
Okay.
And what's one of the first rules of marketing is know your audience, and your audience is time bound. They probably sit on more than one board and really don't have the ability to absorb nearly a tenth of the detail that you want to convey. And the second thing I would say is marketing is not in front of the board as much as other functions, right? Like revenue or, the CFO is
Right.
obviously an active participant in every meeting.
Right.
So it is an important and critical time for you to convey that you have a strategy, that
Right.
you have the ability to execute as well very
Right.
quickly, and how it ties to the overall business objectives of the company. So, maybe you present once or twice a year to the
Right.
board, max, right? Or, I'm fortunate, I do sit in the board meetings and I interact with them, lunch breaks and
Right.
before and after committee meetings. And it's always important to know. So when your CEO says, "Hey, I want you to present," the very first thing, and by the way, you need this not just for your board, you need it for your team, for your exec team, for the company. You should just know this. You should always have in your mind a simple, like, what are the pillars of my strategy?
Hmm.
And you start with that. Like, what are the pillars of my strategy? And it's because I'm a simple person, it's usually 3 things, right? Like the pillars of my strategy here at the marketing
Yeah.
strategy here
At
at
Unity.
Unity,
Yeah.
right? And you should be able to say those at any point in time. And that's how you structure your presentation around that, right? So, for example, here, one of our big pillars is developers. Developers first, because we sell and market to developers. Developers use our tools to
Right.
build amazing creative things. So that's number one. Number two is around revenue. And that's probably the same for every
All
company,
the
is that you have a pillar around revenue. And then our third is around innovation, because we are a
I
tech
see.
company and we're doing a lot in real-time 3D.
Mhm.
So it's innovation and brand, really, because
I see.
that's the brand piece, is how do we, and also our brand is, like many companies, you start with one product and over time it's expanded to more adjacent areas, to more audiences, more target personas. And so how we convey and position that is super important. So anyway, those are my 3. And so any presentation I give will be around those 3 pillars
3
of the
pillars
strategy.
of strategy. Got it.
And so everybody should have that. Yeah.
Perfect. Kayla, on the revenue pillar that you mentioned about, right? If I have to sort of pick 2, 3 slides that you will present in a board, right? Hey, here is our pipeline goals for next quarter, and here is where we'll probably hit. Here is the OKRs for the team to get to the pipeline goals, and here is how we are tracking against them. Is that like a good 2, 3 slides you'll guide the teams, or are you thinking about something different?
Yeah, in fact, the meeting prior to this, I was in a QBR with my team, and we just went through that pipeline, influenced and sourced. And we just went through that and how campaigns are feeding that. I wouldn't talk about like every single
Right.
campaign at the board level, but I would talk about the outcomes and the influence and how marketing contributes to the business, which is what every board wants to see. And so
Right.
I talk about developers, revenue, and brand, and all of that, how it ladders up to here are the overall business objectives and how marketing accelerates that.
Got it. And in the developer section, Carol, which is basically your persona, right? Do you speak a lot about like events and community in terms of how are you building that whole developer brand together, or is there something different in that section?
Definitely. I mean, it's all about community.
I see.
What are we doing around the community, our advocacy programs, our blogs, our influencers, and how does that all ladder up to positive sentiment that drives more usage, drives more trials, and ultimately, should drive more revenue.
That's awesome, Carol. There is one great question from Ray, actually. Let me take that question. How do you think about structuring the marketing team at Unity along those three pillars?
Okay.
How do you think about structuring the marketing team at Unity along those three pillars: developers, revenue, and brand? Do you have like three owners, or is it all cross-functional? Right. So
it's more cross-functional because revenue, everyone,
Right.
everyone ladders up into that. Brand, although I do have a brand and creative team, and most companies should and do. So we are functionally oriented with centers of excellence. And then they're probably more than three, but I like to think about organizational marketing structures. There are three options when you look at how marketing teams are organized. You can go completely distributed or completely centralized. And then there's in between, which I call the hub and spoke. So completely decentralized is actually, when I got here to Unity was like this. And by the way, I've been in other companies, which are marketers are spread throughout business units or sometimes geographies. Right. I call that distributed model. Right. And you typically see, and there's no right answer. It really depends upon the stage of your company and what you're trying to achieve. But you typically see this far more distributed model when you're in startup mode, or you're trying to get like, okay, yeah, you know what? We've got a team over here on project X that's top secret, and we really want it to be a full functioning business of itself because it's nascent. And you want to put marketing people, you want to put support people, you put dedicated salespeople into it. But at some point, these, incubation projects will graduate, and they need to be part of every, more scalable organization. But that distributed org also can even in more mature orgs, you'll see that when in companies with a very strong BU orientation or a very strong geo orientation, that where they almost run separately, like the EMEA teams run separately than APAC, and there's a head of each, a very strong, and they have full stack.
Right.
And full stack teams. Then at the other extreme, so I'll talk about the two extremes I'll talk about. The other extreme is everything's 100% centralized. And the reason for that is often consistency, scale, where you want all your demand gen to be centralized because you want everyone using same tools, same systems, same processes for scale and hopefully some efficiency. And then there's the model in between, which is how Unity is structured, which I call it more hub and spoke, where we have centralized what I call centers of excellence, like where, I'll be honest, our SEO team, they're a center of excellence. I don't need an SEO. I don't need 5 of those teams spread across because they really know SEO really well.
Right.
That's a center of excellence, right? You don't need to duplicate that. Same with, our events team. Our events team, we have a centralized team because they are experienced people who know how to drive tier 1, tier 2 events at scale and how to create incredible experiences that reflect the brand and our goals. So that's a center of excellence, and other teams can draw upon them. The spokes, as I call them, product marketing, for example. Product marketing, I like them particularly to be close to the customer sales and close to the products themselves. And they need to understand, roadmap, details, functional capabilities. And I don't think you can market those products unless you understand those products, right? And the customer needs. So those folks are dedicated to the BU. They're part of marketing.
Right.
Mhm.
The demand gen team, Carol, are they also very BU specific, or are they in the center of excellence side of things?
They're a center of
Center of
excellence,
excellence. I see.
and they take direction and partner very closely with the marketers in the BUs.
Got
But
it.
in terms of, like we talked about, all the systems, the tools, the MarTech stack, we've centralized that. We've also centralized how campaigns are flighted, how landing pages get created. So a lot of the processes. Because here's the challenge I have found. And like I said, there is no perfect org structure.
Right.
And by the way, companies change all the time. Um, but what we're trying to do is really balance scale and speed.
Right. Very
So
well articulated. Yeah.
yeah, and so when you're fully distributed, you could argue you get really fast, speedy, but
But
you often don't get any scale. When you're fully centralized, you get fully scaled,
but you
and so
can't.
we're trying to balance that.
Right. The only thing, Carol, by the way, this is a very, very good articulation of the org structure. So thanks for explaining that very clearly. Only one question I had on that, just for my own understanding, is how is field marketing structured? Because that is also very BU specific, right? And but they report into demand gen and events. So how does that sort of chemistry work in the company?
So field marketing should always be part of marketing. I feel very strongly about
Right.
that. But obviously, they are co-located in the field with their sales counterparts, their support counterparts. Like they need to be closer to the customer, and more of the budget needs to be pushed outwards. That's the one thing when you do have a central model. The one thing I personally am always wary of is making sure that the budget gets allocated in a way. Yes, you may be organized that way, but you want the majority of your spend to be customer facing as much as possible, right? So those field organizations need to be empowered, where here's the thing. They have to work with, central needs to work with the field teams. You don't want field teams reproducing or having to create content that really should come from central. They do what I call, you could call it localization or culturalization, which is making it sure it's relevant and fully appropriate for the local market.
Yeah.
So they do that, what I call that 10% piece of content development. And they should be obviously located physically as close to the customers as possible, but they should be part of marketing. They're part of the spokes.
Yeah. Also, I think even somebody said it's a great point. I actually think now you explain it well. It makes sense that the field marketing teams can actually localize the content very quickly. So it makes sense to have them get more knowledge from the central location where the excellence is happening, and they can just quickly scale at such large speed. So it makes a good point. There is one last question, Carol, that I want to take from Madeline. How do you prioritize marketing goals in the current market with a very small team? There is a lot of notion around do more with less and on all those notion, right? I saw a LinkedIn post recently where they said, if that's the notion, then just do less, right? Don't do more with less, just do less activities and stuff. So how do you prioritize the list of things in your org, especially right now?
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? When resources are constrained, your stakeholders don't ask for less. So really, there are three things. One is the communication and managing your stakeholders and making sure you set expectations. Number two, I have found stakeholders have a hard time prioritizing, our stakeholders for marketing. And so I have found it's not always pretty, but you kind of need to take it away and see what people really value and what really works.
Can you give me an example of that?
I'll give you two examples. So and I'm not going to talk about the specific products, but there's a product area where, marketing generates quite a bit of the online pipeline and revenue for this one product area. And there was this belief that well, we can't hit our numbers this year if you don't do X, Y, and Z and continue to do the online campaigns. And we were like, but they're not efficient. And the return on spend is not at our target level. We cut it down by half, and we're still generating a very high amount of revenue and pipeline. And that's the let's try it. We almost need to do it to show you. The other, events, since you're very familiar with events, sales teams will always say, we need to have this event. We need this. We need to be at X event with a booth, with, a big spend. This is a great example of where just do a little bit less, and no one screams until they scream, until it's really painful. And we've discovered in some cases we did less and no one said anything. And it was like, okay, we don't need to do that event at that scale. And in some cases, there was somebody who was like, oh, we have to have this, we must. And, and then you figure out priorities pretty quickly. So I call that the takeaway strategy. And the third is, as much as possible. And, this takes time and no one likes to, be slow about it, but you got to get the data. You just have to get the data and make data-driven decisions, unless the emotion of, gosh, we have to be at that energy event. We've always been there. If we don't show up, it's bad for us. It's like, show me the data. Show me the data. Who came? What did we generate? What happened last year? And part of that, let's face it, it's sales and marketing together.
That's awesome. That's great, Carol. Just one point from I think Tanya. It's a fair point. Like, budget cuts always force you to be smarter. If you think around things in that direction, hey, there is an optimist who is trying to be right, optimistic. So it's
well, there's a saying, when the tide goes out, you can see who has clothes on. And the tide has gone out economically, and we all know it. And you can actually see who does really good marketing,
right?
Because in a growth market, everyone's buying, everyone, and so it's easy to take credit, which we should, because marketing works very hard. But it's like, we did great marketing. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I talk to my team a lot about, are you a great jockey, or are you on a great horse? And I'm really excited and happy to say, I think I have a lot of great jockeys on my team, and that's what I want on the team, because there are, ups and downs in businesses, and you want great jockeys. And it's easy to say, yeah, I won, but it really was all the horse.
Right.
And,
that's awesome, Carol. I've spoken to probably 50 CMOs in these interviews so far, and there are times when I speak to some CMOs, I feel like, oh my God, I just don't know anything. And today is one of those days. So, kudos to you for, dropping knowledge bombs every minute. So I really appreciate your time today. Last couple of questions from my end. Any books you're reading now, or things that you've sort of read recently that amazed you, that you would want to recommend folks to?
So I started reading Reid Hoffman's book that he wrote with ChatGPT, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it.
Right.
You asked me what I'm reading. I think it's interesting. It's interesting. It just shows, you don't need to read it to get the takeaway, which is, it's incredible how sentient, human-like ChatGPT seems. Okay, so it is astounding. If you just play with ChatGPT for a little bit, you'll realize that, or Bard, or Bing. So I think that's fascinating. The other thing I'm trying to figure out, like, where does entertainment go? And it obviously, like, this is relevant to our business. So this is why it's a problem I just think about all the time, which is, the world, we believe, is moving from 2D to 3D. And, AI is a big part of that. And we talked about some of that already. But, the reason why games are the genesis for how and where film is going and where TV is going is games are the ultimate form of real time and 3D as well. Is it's not linear. You don't know what's coming next.
Right.
It's all dependent on, did I push the X or the Y, or did I move my joystick this way, or did I, how did I interact? And I think entertainment is all going to go that way. And so I'm really excited and curious. And so this is like one of those things I'm looking at how we consume all this entertainment. And also it's very non-interactive today. I think it's going to become much more interactive.
Yeah. Imagine you're in a movie and you can choose, how the movie should be directed, like, emotional, like, I want it to be exciting, thrilling, and you can sort of pick your own directions.
It's scary enough. Scream is not scaring me enough, right? I need or you're in it and you do something, you interact with the protagonist,
right.
And it changes the outcome. Like, I think we are in for, I'm so glad, I'm grateful to be alive, but grateful to be alive right now. Like every day, technology is a great place to be. Innovation continues.
And last question from my end. Any CMOs that you respect and sort of, hey, look, you should probably follow these CMOs. They're really good in what they do. Anyone that you recommend in your network that you would advise us to sort of take a peek?
So
there are many, but anyone that comes to your mind immediately, it jumps out.
So, well, you've interviewed my buddy, John from Okta. I think he's done some really, really great work, because security is just, it's a really crowded market. Right. So how do you differentiate? There's like talk about like getting down to marketing 101. I think who's ever doing some of this AI marketing, they all need help. So that's kind of the opposite. Like, you see what's coming out, like, and how people are talking about. I'm like, I don't want to call out any companies, but all of them are not doing a very good job. And I'm sure you can imagine who I'm talking about. So I think there's some room for improvement, but I think they will get there. I think there, I don't want to stay too close to home, but I think some of our customers are doing some really great marketing, and I don't want to tout my own products, but it's because they're using Unity to create these real-time experiences that are frankly delightful, mind-blowing, and highly functional. So a lot of the luxury brands we're working with and car companies are doing these phenomenal, they're creating, and their marketing experiences, don't be fooled. They may say it's a car experience, but it's a marketing experience. Like the reason people pay the premiums they pay for Mercedes is because of the experience. So
definitely.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Carol, I just want to thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope the audience folks enjoyed as well. But thanks again for your time. We really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Carol. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, see you.